Just run the damn ball. Auburn has got to run the damn ball in 2025. Welcome on into the Auburn Express, powered by the War Rapport. I'm your host, Mike G, and thank you so much for making us your first listen of every single day. Joining me as he does every single week. We took a week off, but we're back in action, back in effect.
Back and better than ever. Yes. Mike, thank you so much. Thank you so much for allowing me to be here as always, man. Glad to be back in the saddle with you, talking all things Auburn, and run that damn ball, man.
Yeah, we're going to talk about running the ball today. I want to talk about some advanced stats that we were looking at before we started recording Thrift. On third down, third and short, third and 1 to 3 yards to go, Auburn averaged 5.42 yards per carry. Thrift. That's a first down.
Yeah.
That is a first down. We saw Auburn get cute at times in third and short situations, particularly in the red zone. It appears as if the solution to a lot of Hugh Freeze's ails in 2025 will be just to run the ball. Now, Jarquez Hunter is gone, but I think Damari Alston is a capable RB1. I think that Jeremiah Cobb is just as capable as an RB1, but will be a solid RB2. You got the young guy, Alvin Henderson. You've got talent, and they just need to run the ball and not overthink this thing going into next season.
I completely agree with that, man. And here's the stat that I want to add on top of that, which is obviously that you're running for a first down in short yardage situations. Why is Jarquez Hunter not getting the football? Here's something even bigger. Auburn known, especially under Gus Malzahn, as a team that used to have a 1,000-yard runner almost every year. If you go back since 2008, there have been 3 seasons in which they didn't eclipse over 2,000 rushing yards. 2008, Tommy Tuberville was fired. 2012, Gene Chizik was fired. And last year, Hugh Freeze is still on the job. Now, I don't understand how a team as Auburn, known for their physicality, does not even get 2,000 yards rushing. That is crazy to me. To have only 1,900 yards, it's the lowest since 2012, in which we went 3-9 that season. Mike, that's a mind-boggling number that has to change. Because if you're going to win in the SEC, you got to eclipse at least 2,500 yards. If you look at Auburn's best seasons, they have at least over 2,500 yards rushing.
Yeah, and that includes quarterback runs as well, too, when we talk about those rushing yards. But as you mentioned, in the last, 8 years, Thrift? 9 years, going back to 2016, Auburn's best year rushing was 2016.
Yeah,
that was Cam Petway, Kerryon Johnson, those guys as a
Johnny White.
Oh my, Sean White. Wow. Those guys as a collective rushed for 3,500 yards. Now, 2016 isn't what I would say one of the better years for Auburn football. But certainly those guys had something going on the ground that if Auburn can reproduce here with the quarterback talent and the receiver talent that they have paired together, it would be formidable on offense. So, I'm just looking at what these guys were able to do. It's pretty amazing. Last year, you rushed for 1,986 yards. You didn't even hit 2,000. And that includes quarterback runs. So, 1,500 yards of difference between where they could be and where they are. You split the difference, I think. If they can butt up against the high side of that, like around 2,900 yards, that'll get the job done.
Mike, last year alone, they had 404 yards, 404 attempts at running the football. When you don't run, this is what happens. I don't think it was lack of offensive line push. I don't think it was lack of production at the running back position, not having the talent. I think there just weren't enough running plays being called. Point blank, period. It is not about the scheme. I just really feel like they went away from that more often than not, in which they put Peyton Thorne in positions to be unsuccessful last year. And the fact is, 4.92 yards per carry. That's almost 5. Mike, if you're getting 5 yards of carry, why are you not running the football a lot more? It makes absolutely no sense. And I think it really was one of the things where people started questioning, why is Hugh Freeze still running the offense if you got a dynamic running offense that you keep in the back? It's like you got that Porsche and you never want to bring it out and showcase it. Why not? Why do you
Yeah.
have it in the first place?
Yeah. Well, the way I look at this, and to kind of put these numbers in perspective for our listeners on podcasts as well, that those 2,900 yards we're asking for from this offense. I mentioned 2016 Auburn as a team rushed for 3,500 yards. Last year, Tennessee was the best rushing offense in the country. They rushed for 2,936 yards. So, we're asking for Auburn to be a top 3 rushing offense in the conference, in the country, in the conference. Now, you said something just now about not running the ball enough, just not calling enough running plays. There's some truth to
Right.
that, because as good as Jarquez Hunter was, he came in second in the conference in rushing only because Dylan Sampson had like 70 more rush attempts than he did.
Come on, Mike.
70 more rush attempts. I cover UCF as well, too. They had probably the second best back in the country last year in RJ Harvey. Yes, I know Cam. I know people are going to look at the stats and tell me, oh, but Cam Scatterboom was better. I don't give a damn, Thrift. RJ Harvey was damn good. As a matter of fact, if you want to go by average yards per carry, 6.8, the only back better than him in the country was Ashton Genty. That's it. That's why RJ Harvey got drafted in the second round from a 4-8 team. So, and he, of the top 10 backs in the country, he came in at number 6. He had the fewest carries at like 202. Jarquez Hunter had 187 rush attempts last year. That's not enough, because the guys who are leading the country, they were 250 or more.
No doubt.
So you got to get the ball to these guys more, and you got to trust the Damari as long as he doesn't fumble. Trust Damari, trust Jeremiah Cobb. These guys have been in your system. The kid that they brought in from Connecticut, they brought a running back in from Connecticut that they really like as well too. But I tend to favor the guys that they're recruiting out of high school. Just give these guys the ball, man, and let them do what they can do. 2,900 yards. If Auburn broke 3,000 yards rushing, that would have led the conference last year. Tennessee 225 yards per game. Auburn came in at 7 at 173 yards per game, averaging a 4.63 yards per carry. But you know what? Your lead back, Jarquez Hunter, averaged 6.4 yards per carry. So that average was being brought down by everybody else.
I completely agree, man. And if you look at the stats, I mean, Peyton Thorne, again, threw for close to 2,800 yards, and he threw for 21 touchdowns and 9 interceptions.
And he sat out a game.
And he sat out a game. It's not like his stats were terrible. Think about what he would have been able to do if there had been more balance in getting the football to Jarquez Hunter, putting Peyton Thorne instead of must passing down situations to, hey, we can pass or run here, which makes him more lethal. And guess what? You got an upgraded version at that with Jackson Arnold. Showcase the legs, run the freaking football, then play action pass. And guess what? That's when Auburn's at its best. When they don't have to throw but want to, Auburn's offense is lethal. And it's been a long time since I've said that. It's crazy because under Gus Malzahn, it wasn't about Auburn's offense. It was early on, can Auburn's defense live up to par? Now, these last several years, we're just praying for something competitive, something comprehensible to be put on the field that makes sense. And right now, I'm hoping this upcoming year, we're going to see that transition. We keep saying over and over again the hope part, but I think Hugh Freeze knows these stats. I think he knows you got to run the football to be successful in the SEC.
You do have to run the football, but you also got to pass the football to all the great receivers that you brought in as well, too. Cam Coleman must eat in 2025, as does Perry Thompson, Malcolm Simmons, Eric Singleton Jr., Horatio Fields, Bryce Kane, Malcolm Simmons. The list goes on and on. Look, After we come back from the break, we'll talk a little bit more about what Auburn needs to do on offense. Guys, this is the Auburn Express. Let's pay some bills and we'll be right back.
This episode of the Auburn Express is brought to you by our friends at the Vibe Vault. You can find them at 3462 Crosswinds Road, Suite E in Phoenix City, Alabama. That's right across the street from the Chattahoochee Valley Community College, next to Renfro's Supermarket and Marco's Pizza. The Vibe Vault. If you're in the Columbus, Phoenix City area and you're looking to get fresh for the weekend, get fresh for the weekend with the Vibe Vault. Not just barbers, lifestyle consultants.
This episode of the War Rapport is brought to you by our friends at the Rogue Shop. Visit rogueshop.com. Use code RAPPORT to get 15% off your Rogue Shop order. Pain, sleep, stress, anxiety, Bammers, Georgia Bulldog fans, whatever ails you in life, the Rogue Shop has something to make the tide stop rolling and the dog stop barking. The rogueshop.com to cure all your annoying fan needs. Also want to thank our friends at Golden's Cast Iron. Visit goldenscastiron.com/WR. Use code Get Your Weight Up for 15% off your weights and code TWR for $65 off fire pits and Kamado grills. Golden's Cast Iron. It's the summer. You want to be outside grilling with your family or just staying in shape with some Golden's Cast Iron weights. Work out, grill out, chill out with Golden's Cast Iron. Thrift, let's jump back into the conversation here. As I mentioned, and you mentioned, balance must be achieved in 2025 if you're Auburn. So while they have to just run the damn football, they also have to achieve balance through the air. Because quite frankly, in a tight game, when the chips are stacked up, you've got to be able to move the ball through the air. And Auburn was not able to do that a ton. Now, last year we saw them take down Texas A&M, at home in 4 OTs, and it was a winning touchdown pass that won the game. Alternatively, for Texas A&M, it was a failed passing catch that ended the game for them. We talked about those rushing numbers, Auburn coming in with 1,986 yards on the ground. But I do want to, again, I think context is important and reference points are important in this conversation. So before we move to passing, I just want to make sure our listeners on pod understand Alabama was just over Auburn in the number 6 spot with 2,260 yards rushing at a 4.63 yards per carry average. Mississippi, Ole Miss, came in at 2,284 yards at a 4.57 yards per carry average. South Carolina, 2,397 yards on the ground, 4.35 yards per carry. So they were worse than everybody ranked behind them, even though they had more yards. Arkansas, 2,402 yards on the ground, 4.86 yards per carry. Texas A&M, 2,541 yards at 4.83 yards per carry. And then Tennessee at number 1, 29-36 on the ground at 5.03 yards per carry. Thrift, hear me out. Of the top 7, and with Auburn at 7, they average more yards per carry than everybody who had more yards in front of them, except Tennessee. That's it. Tennessee was the only team ranked in front of Auburn in total yards that averaged more yards per carry. They should have run the ball more, but they've got to pass the ball a little bit here as well if they want to find themselves successful in 2025. And that's where I want to take today's conversation. Cam Coleman's got to be a star. He's got to be a star. But he can't be the only one. Eric Singleton's going to have to be the star the same way Keandre Lambert-Smith was a star for this team last year. Malcolm Simmons was a star rising. That his upward trajectory has to continue. And Perry Thompson has to come out of the locker room, man, this season, and he's got to do some things. This is a top 30 overall guy. He can't wilt away on your bench. If you're Hugh Freeze, your charge is not only to create more opportunities to run the ball more, but to also create opportunities in the passing game for all these dynamic receivers that you much to his credit, went out and brought in.
Yeah, and you're thinking if you're Hugh Freeze and you can get Damari Alston and you can get him and the running back group committee, okay, if they can get you over 150 to 200 yards a game through the ground, you would think Jackson Arnold can get you another 200 through the air. You get you 400 yards of total offense in the SEC this year with the defense that we think is going to be much improved. I think that's a recipe for success. I really do. And I also think you got to account for the fact that Jackson Arnold's going to get you 50 to 75 on the ground with him. Just when plays break down, he can take off and run. That dynamic itself can bring more continuity with this offense, moving the football, which has allowed Hugh Freeze to be creative, or whoever's calling the daggone plays. If it's Derek Nix, I don't care. Whoever's calling the plays, be creative, but don't get away from the fundamentals, which has been football 101. If you run the damn ball and you're good at it, you will be successful at offense because then everything else falls into place. So I really do believe if Auburn has the offensive line and its growth this offseason, you would think that allows Jackson Arnold being able to move the football through running it, and then he's in a situation where he doesn't have to pass. He just wants to pass. And then you're looking at an Auburn offense that's going to be successful.
I talked about those top 7 in rushing in the conference. I want to frame out where Auburn stood statistically in passing in the top 7 that they were also in the conference. Mississippi State came in thrift at number 7 with 2,871 yards through the air. That's 7.8 yards per pass attempt. Auburn came in at 3,167. That's 3,167 yards through the air at an 8.6 yard per attempt clip. Ahead of them by almost 400 yards, or over 400 yards, is Arkansas with 3,571 yards through the air at that same 8.6 yard per attempt clip. Texas came in at 4,460 yards, 8.2 yards per attempt, just a little less than Auburn, Arkansas there as well. Then Georgia came in at number 3. And the numbers here are a little different, so just bear with me. They had 3,934 yards here. It's saying at 7.7 yards per attempt. Now, remember, they played fewer games, right? Like, because they played fewer games because Texas won their playoff game and played in the SEC championship game as well, too. So Georgia had only 14 games on the docket. Texas had 16. LSU came in. They were not a playoff participant, but certainly they had a bowl game, and they had 4,097 yards through the air at 7.7 yards per attempt. And then the top passing team in the country, Ole Miss, who did not make the playoffs, but still Jackson Dart and Lane Kiffin turned in 4,561 yards through the air, 10.5 yards per attempt. They were the only team in the conference to average double digits per attempt through the air last season. And that was 31 touchdowns, so only 7 interceptions as well, too. Look, Auburn can climb this list, and I don't think they need to climb it very high to be competitive. If you can add 500 to 600 more yards on the season through the air, you might be the second best passing offense in the conference next year.
Yeah, great point, Mike.
You know, we're not asking. It's not a ton of production. Like, when you look at how Auburn lost games last year, it was a lot of, if we had made 2 more plays, we get the win. If we make a kick, we get the win. You know, there was no team that ran Auburn off the field last year. Georgia scored 31 points, but there weren't a whole lot of teams that scored more than 28 points on Auburn, if any.
And I guess that's where it's both frustrating, but also you can find that silver lining for last year, man. There was no blowouts. You were in every game competitively. a ball bounce here or there, like you made mention, a better call here or there, you're talking about an 8 or 9 win season compared to being 5-7. Now, on the flip side, that makes you think, man, we were that close yet so far away and finished with a 5-7 record. How is that possible? So I can see it from both sides. But with you making mention, Auburn's not far off from those elite teams in the conference. That's the point of what you're saying with stats right now. And by the way, Ole Miss only had 2,200 yards rushing last year. Now, Auburn doesn't need to throw for 4,500 yards. Hell, I don't know if Auburn's ever thrown for 4,500 yards in the history of Auburn program. So I don't think that's going to be possible. But if they can get over 2,500, I think that's the plateau, Mike. They get over 2,500, and they can get over 2,500 to 3,000 in the air. You're talking about an offense that is pretty much doing whatever they want. And there's the talent's there. There's no excuse in it. And let's see if Auburn can take advantage of it. But again, the whole point of what we're saying is, as bad as Auburn record looked last year, finishing 5-7, not making a bowl game, is sad. You weren't far off from the team that won the Daggum Conference last year. You weren't far off from a team that had one of the best offenses in the country last year. And that shows you. And then you just elevated your roster. That only means one thing, Mike. Either you're going to get better or the coach sucks. Point blank, period. Sorry, I got to say that. Hugh, don't get mad at me when I see you at SEC Media Days.
We're going to answer one of those questions here, I think, this season. The talent is there. And credit to the staff, right? This is part of the game as well, too. You have to bring in talent as well as coach that talent on game day. They focus strongly on bringing in high levels of competent talent the first 2 years. They succeeded at that task, Thrift. Now you have to take that talent, you got to put it all in a pot, and you got to turn it into wins on the football field. Now, there was a belief, before we get out of here, that Auburn did not have the personnel to run as much of the offense as Hugh Freeze would have liked to have run the first 2 years.
That's what they always say. That's what they always say, but continue, Mike.
Yeah, I think it may be true. Well, they back that up, because when fans were making noise about going after Cam Ward, Auburn didn't want to drop that kind of money on a quarterback in the portal because they felt like they were more than a quarterback away from being able to do what they wanted to do. So they said, you know what? Let's take that money and stack the deck everywhere else. Let's go out and continue to get receivers. Let's beef up our own line. Let's continue to give DJ Durkin the tools he needs on defense. He's doing amazing. And you know what? Let's pay DJ Durkin to make sure that he doesn't walk out the door. They made him the second highest paid assistant in the country last year. And look where you are. If Jackson Arnold is your guy and your O-line stays healthy and you avoid any catastrophic injuries, Auburn statistically, because if you look at the results, 5-7, you would think that they were near the bottom of the conference statistically, and a lot of the things that we just listed out, they weren't. They were well within the top half, but they were in the top 7 in the conference in passing and rushing.
Yeah. So
but somehow didn't finish in the top 7 in record. That's scheme and coaching and circumstance. And you have a chance to turn all that around this year.
I'm not hearing excuses anymore, Mike. I'm done with it. I'm not here. I don't have my guys. I can't run the offense I want. That's bullarchy. And now it is put up or shut up. Point blank, period. I think we can talk till we're blue in the face, Mike, but until we actually see what is on the field, and I love conversation like these, but again, as much as I want to say all the things are pointing in the right direction to be successful, if you go, proof is in the pudding the last 2 years, it's been more than just the talent. It has been the coaching too. Has that been elevated? We know the roster has the coaching. We're going to find out this year.
We certainly are. Hugh Freeze is not running from that, Thrift. So we'll be there when it's time to call him to the carpet on whether the coaching has done the job or not. Great conversation as always, my good friend Thrift Behringer. You know the deal. Before we get out of here, tell everybody where they can find you.
Before we do that, I want to say this, Mike, because I know we haven't talked about it. Auburn basketball roster next year. I'm telling you, I'm super excited about it, Mike, and I think they have the potential to be a way better offensive team than Auburn was this year. I like Jovic. I don't think he's talked about enough. This is a European guy that's played against professionals. I think you got 2 seniors that want to win more than anything, and Murphy and Keyshawn Hall. You brought Pettiford back. You get guys that are good role players in Williams, and then you add all the other additions in the junior college guys. I'm telling you right now, mark my words, in June 25th, 2025, Auburn basketball by the end of next year could be better than this year's team. Just mark my words on that. By the way, you can listen to me talk about stuff like this and those hot takes on Georgia Alabama Sports Live. Like and subscribe on Facebook and YouTube. And, of course, the Sports Vision Morning Show every weekday morning, 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. on Sports Vision's 92.1 FM. Love you, Mike. Thank you as always, man. Look forward to seeing you next week.
If you're in the comments right now, do us a favor, smash that super thanks button. We'll be at SEC Media Days in a few weeks, bringing you guys lots of great content from the College Football Hall of Fame. You can help keep our work going by hitting that super thanks button. That's it, guys, for another great edition. If you want more content like this, please hit like and subscribe. We are the War Rapport on every social media platform. CW Report on TikTok. We're signing off, and as always, War Eagle.